Hey, WokeNFree Nation, Newsly is an audio app for iOS and Android. It picks up web articles about the most trending topics on the web at any given moment and reads them to you in a natural human voice.
For the first time in the history of the internet, the entire web becomes listenable. Browse articles from topics you choose and start playing. Stop scrolling, start listening.
You can follow any topic as specific as you like, from sports, science to Bitcoin, or even one of your favorite celebrities. It will find you the latest articles and read them to you aloud.
And they have podcasts as well. Explore trending podcasts from over 50 countries. Our podcast, WokeNFree, is there too.
Now let's get into the episode. Hi, it's Natasha.
And Khalil.
And we are the co-hosts of
WokeNFree.
Thank you for tuning in to our 305th episode of WokeNFree. If you've been tuning in every week for WokeNFree Wednesday, you know that WokeNFree is all about being real and honest with each other and you. We talk about everything and anything important to us, you, the world, and nothing is off the table. This week, we have to talk about what's going on with affirmative action. And specifically, the question is affirmative action needed for equality in school? So before we dive deep into the subject, a couple of things to cover. Yeah, this is going to be a heavy one. First, have you gone to WokeNFree.com not only to listen to the episode, but have you downloaded it through the Podbean app? If not, please do so immediately. If you have the app, then you can put in your comments, and we know y'all have thoughts on this. So don't be shy. Please do get the app so you can share your thoughts about affirmative action with us, wherever you stand on the topic. Next, if you listen to podcasts on a device where you can't put on another app like the Podbean app, then that's a little bit sad, but that's okay. What you can still do is go to WokeNFree.com and then go to the Listen tab and then pick your platform of choice where you're going to follow and subscribe to WokeNFree. So you will find the show on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, Google Play. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Pandora. It's a WokeNFree world where most podcasts are consumed. You will find this show. So make sure you do that. Also, through Podbean on WokeNFree.com, you're able to click subscribe to follow the show. And on social media, we'd love for you to engage with our social content on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Pinterest, and LinkedIn at WokeNFree. Now, if you have 90 seconds, which is more of a question, more of a statement, less of a question, really, because we know that you have 90 seconds. Like, let's stop playing games. So what we'd love for you to do with those 90 seconds is to review the show. Why? Because we want to know how the show's feeding into your life. So best way to do that, go to WokeNFree.com, go on the Listen tab, and then pick your platform of choice where you will review the show. And thank you in advance for the 5-star ratings. Fantastic. Kicking it to you now, Khalil.
All right, well, I'll take it from here. Before we start this conversation, how about we share a little bit about ourselves? This week, we are asking, would you rather hang glide or windsurf?
Pointless. Hang glide.
Okay, that's your final answer?
I mean, I'm not doing either, but sure. For this fictional foolishness, I will.
Why does there have to be alliteration for the answers?
Because I got it like that, though.
Oh,
so
okay.
We're going to hang glide. How about you?
See, I don't know if you put any thought into this because I couldn't see you doing the hang glide versus the windsurf.
I'm not doing either. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
But
it made no sense.
That's the whole point, but this is a rather.
Would you be a dragon or an icicle? Get away from me.
That's easy answer. Everybody would be the dragon over an icicle. Exactly. Why would you want to be something that melts in someone's mouth? You don't want to do that.
You're gross.
The icicle is that's no fun to do.
Answer the question.
But I'm answering for you first because I got to tell you one thing. You realize the hang gliding, you're going to be in the air above the
like
earth.
in the Jurassic Park #3. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll be above the earth. You okay with that?
Not above. Well, you mean in the air, though.
Yeah, it's above the earth.
No, well, this land of the surf, but we're
mass,
still on the planet of Earth. Yeah.
Well, it's debatable, right? What is on the planet? Where does space begin? Where does Earth end? It is. It's an age-old question that no one can answer for sure.
You'll be above the land, exactly. But you'll still be on planet Earth, though.
Well, it's debatable.
In the air of adjacent to the Earth.
You won't be in the stratosphere, at least.
Correct.
You'll be in that lower level.
I chose that answer because I like that scene from Jurassic Park 3 where the pterodactyls eat the stepdad Stepfather, yeah, and then the kid has to figure out and how to survive, and it just seemed like a cool thing to reenact.
But
for this fictional foolishness.
You rather put your life at risk, though, basically, than the windsurfing.
I think both are foolishness, but I recommend.
Hang gliding is a little more dangerous.
Tip my hat to anyone who does it. God bless you.
Which one?
Either of them. Have fun, but
you'll give them more to the hang gliders who really risk their lives.
I don't know people who are doing either. So,
but you can just think about that.
Or maybe I haven't. You know what? Let me take that back.
Yeah, they may not have mentioned it to you.
Anyone in my life, if they've done either of these things.
Well, yeah, I can't say, but the windsurfing is, you can do that at a lot of places. The hang gliding you can't do anywhere. That's a very trained, specialized sport.
Did they do it in
Windsurfing you can do almost anywhere.
Or some specialty island they did it on the Jurassic Park number 3. So I'm not sure.
With the hang gliding?
Yeah, I'm not sure where they were. If they were
because you usually need a nice
but...
like a cliff basically to take off from is how the hang gliding works.
Yeah.
Windsurfing's incredible because you could do it in any ocean.
Is that your answer?
Well, my answer is I've done neither. So the thing that I would want to do first is I would start with the windsurfing because that just seems at least that's more down to earth, right? It's not in the atmosphere where things can happen. I think that things could go down if you're in the sky, and I don't know. I mean, it's not that I'm scared of it, but I'd rather do windsurfing first just because I can do that anywhere. And just like with the question today, this happens everywhere, right? Affirmative action is occurring at all the colleges, but with the new Supreme Court ruling, what's actually going on with affirmative action?
All right. Well, first, let's define it. So I found a definition on Investopedia.com that I thought would be good to share. Affirmative action refers to a policy aimed at increasing workplace and educational opportunities for people who are underrepresented in various areas of our society. It focuses on demographics with historically low representation in leadership and professional roles, and it's often considered a means of countering discrimination against particular groups. So that's just like, let's just start with some shared language there. Whether folks agree or disagree, that is a definition that can be leveraged for this conversation. Next, when you go to kcra.com, and again, all of our links, if you're new to WokeNFree, will be available in the episode notes. You can just click on them and read the articles yourself. And if you aren't already aware, the Supreme Court last week struck down affirmative action in college admissions, declaring race cannot be a factor and forcing institutions of higher education to look for new ways to achieve diverse student bodies. And what was challenging about this is the court's conservative majority overturned admission plans at Harvard and the University of North Carolina, the nation's oldest private and public colleges, respectively. The decision essentially follows, as we all know, last year's momentous abortion ruling that overturned Roe v. Wade, which marked the realization of a long-sought conservative legal goal, this time finding that race-conscious admission plans violate the Constitution and a law that applies to colleges that receive federal funding, as almost all do. So these schools will now be essentially forced to have to reshape their admissions process, especially top schools that are more likely to consider the race of applicants, like some of our Ivy League schools. And the article goes on to share kind of the different perspectives of the different justices. So like, what did Chief Justice John Roberts feel about it versus Justice Clarence Thomas versus Justice Sonia Sotomayor, or I think our newest one, Justice Ketanji. Yeah. And what I loved when I saw in this article is that it stated that that justice felt that the court's first black female justice, she called this decision truly a tragedy for us all. And so super, for me, at least how I feel about this decision as well, super fitting, because the same way that I am still shocked over Roe v. Wade being overturned, I am like, especially as someone who's gone through law school, I find this to be just deeply troubling for our nation. I feel like we're taking so many decade steps back for when it comes to protecting the rights of those who are disenfranchised in this country, which are women for Roe v. Wade and people of color for the affirmative action. But more to discuss in this episode, of course. But that's kind of a little bit of a summary of kind of what has happened currently and what's going on.
a good, I mean, just in general, is a problem with Roe v. Wade was that was just a court ruling. Really, we needed a law in place that just protects abortion.
I mean, the Supreme
we need
Court,
a federal
though,
law, but that's not a law. That's a ruling. So that's why it can be overturned easily.
And that's where
law is better. It's a little bit harder for them just to strike it down.
By Roe v. Wade being overturned, it allowed for now states to make their decisions.
So now the
states
decide,
states
but
that are more conservative. And
I really blame. I mean, for this, I blame the presidents that we have because they needed to put forth. Well, actually, I shouldn't say the president, but it should be Congress because they need to put forward
federal mandates.
Yeah, they need to put forward a law that would protect abortion. We can't just rely on court rulings. That's because they can be overturned. You see, even after years and years of being,
the laws can be undone as well, right?
But it's a lot. I think harder. It's a lot harder, right? They don't just overturn
we needed
laws.
Federal mandates.
At least have the federal protection.
Well, I think within both spaces of the protection of women's rights, especially for abortion, but then also
number one
for thinking through college admission and what it means historically, why we had affirmative action to now have this go away. I think that's is challenging. And this the basis of why we're talking about it.
Yeah, we got to talk about it because this is a lot. I mean, it's on its face. It's hard to pay either way. I mean, to say is it right to actually look at somebody's race when all the time we say we shouldn't look at race, but then when it comes to this, we do like a reverse racism. So it's definitely a question.
Gotta be careful about throwing out language like that. I think the purpose of affirmative action, as started in the beginning of this episode, is not reverse discrimination, right? Yeah. It's not to make space for people of color or people who are disenfranchised at the detriment of those who are not diverse. The point is to provide equalization, given historically that colleges and universities did not allow people of color or women, right, to attend. And so we had to have a leveling factor like affirmative action that says, of course, of all the different things that are being considered, your academics, your activities, your recommendations, race can be a considering factor, given historically how you come from a community that would have not been allowed to attend for many, many moons, right? So let's not take you out and discount you because we know historically what we've done to you has been unjust. And this is not a righting of the wrong, but it is a way to provide equalization or equity for these different people.
But I mean, still, you are using a race as a factor.
But it doesn't have to be. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. And if you speak to most admissions officers and stuff like that, they are not going to say, "Oh yes, they were a person of color. Absolutely, you get in." Right?
No, that's not that.
What it's. And I feel like some people like to be very flippant with affirmative action and just say, "Oh, you just have to be black and you can go to Harvard." Lies and fairy tales.
But see, that's why when this ruling's gone, they can't even say anything now.
But guess what? So now
they can't be like, "Oh, you got in because of your race."
What happens with admissions of those disenfranchised who apply now? If they drop 50 to 80%? Interesting.
And then what I've heard also about this is interesting is just because they can't just look at your race and say, all right, we're considering that in your application process, but you can use if race has caused you struggle, which, I mean, come on, for minorities, it always does. You can actually use that in your application process still. So I think that's very interesting that you still can use your struggle, which if it's based on race, that's okay. So it's kind of like a way to get around.
Because similar to what one of the justices mentioned in the court ruling, which is the reality is, even if we want to legally say race cannot be a considerable factor, that doesn't mean that that's in practice in life. Because in practice in life,
that's
black and brown lives do struggle because they are black and brown. You cannot change that with a Supreme Court ruling. You would have to do a societal breakdown and change that, right? Like,
but yeah, it's the
reality of life.
Because reality, it's just a human created thing, right? Yeah. This human created
because we believe in
factor or whatever
practices and beliefs and biases that adhere to race, and so thus.
So yeah, I mean, in all of all, it'll be a factor until race is not until it doesn't exist in society. So that's a consideration.
Absolutely. Now, to answer the question for today, for this episode, what would you say is? Do you feel like affirmative action is needed for equality in school?
I mean, I think it's interesting now is that, I mean, even I don't know the exact start date, but affirmative action, it's the equality is only needed actually in PWI schools or predominantly white institutions because HBCUs have no issues with that, right?
Of course not. Yeah.
They're gonna let the minorities in.
The only space for us to attend, right?
And that was the reason that HBCUs were created, is because
Exactly.
you couldn't get into the PWI, so you actually had to go to the HBCUs, and those. So it's interesting to say equality in school, not necessarily, but equality in the PWI schools, yes, because otherwise we saw that without affirmative action, they weren't letting us in.
Yeah.
And that was after slavery, right? It was,
of course.
All this discrimination was occurring just because they were allowed to. There's no rules that stopped them. So
no, just bias and
think
racism and hatred. Yeah.
The affirmative action, it definitely helped to just
to
equalize
create space
that
for us. Yeah.
But I think now we're at a point where there are online universities that we can do. There's like a ton of them now that are even accredited. You don't just have to go to University of Phoenix. There's a lot of ones out there.
First of all, we don't know if that is an accredited or non-accredited school. Unless
I don't know if it's accredited or non-accredited, but I know that they're they used to advertise their online program heavily in the 90s.
But you cannot claim lack of accreditation or insinuate lack of accreditation.
Oh, I'm not insinuating either way.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that
I don't know where
you have more
this
options
stands.
though.
Yes.
Besides that, I'm saying.
Well, that's a space for people to learn along with other spaces. Yes.
Oh, okay. Because I know people might think that there's not a lot of online schools.
People can make whatever judgments. We want to be careful about what any insinuations.
I'm not insinuating if they're accredited or not, because I'd have to. Yeah, I'm just speaking off the top of my head about that, because I know they're an online school, but now there's a ton of. I mean, a lot of universities offer online programs, just general ones. So
there are Ivy League schools that have online certificate programs. And of course, there's many ways. If you want to learn, there's many ways to do that.
I think in nowadays, just like you were saying, there's even things outside of university like accreditation, certifications that you can get. That these jobs will often they'll overlook that in lieu of even a college education.
Oh, yeah.
So I would just bring that up as like a counterpoint to affirmative action.
It's really needed.
Like needed for equality, and we're saying schooling, but let's think about education. I mean, education in general is more democratized than before just because of the predominance of the internet. Now you can get your education from a lot of different places.
Well, what's interesting now is the pathway to success. It looks very different now than it did 50 years ago or even 20 years ago. And there are many employers now that are even open to the idea of just saying, hey, life experience, as we know, will always trump educational experience, because someone who has gone through a process, someone who has led campaigns, regardless of whether they studied it from a textbook or not, it's going to be more meaningful to have life experience and educational experience. Now, there are some roles that require it, like our doctors or professions that require an educational standing or completion. But 20, 30, 50 years from now, that may or may not change. So we have to see. But I agree with you in that how we go about the pathway for our lives is broader, and we can be a little bit more non-traditional. But do we need to think through why should affirmative action be in the college admission process? Well, there's an article I found on AmericanProgress.org that I thought that was interesting. They gave 5 reasons why one should support affirmative action. So we'll see if we hit all of them. So the first one is students of color remain underrepresented on college campuses. And to your point, yes, we're talking about the predominantly white college campuses. We're not talking about historically black colleges and universities. So even to this day, we still have a disparity of the amount of people of color that are attending those schools. So for example, let's see. For select universities that were mentioned in the article, they still have a black student enrollment disparity exists at 45 of 50 flagship state universities, meaning that the percentage of undergraduates who are black is lower than the percentage of high school graduates in that state who are black. And an example provided would be black students constituted 50% of 2015 to 2016 high school graduates in Mississippi, but were just 12.9% of University of Mississippi undergraduates. So,
but did they go outside the state? Maybe that other 40%.
Potentially, yeah.
Like, did they say, all right, we don't want to go to Mississippi schools?
Yeah, maybe they went out of state, but that seems problematic, right? If we're looking at kind of how our students are graduating and where they're ending up. Yeah, to your point, maybe they went to other schools and that's not a problem, but we'd have to, I guess, make sure the data is explainable and understandable and that people aren't being denied opportunities, right? Which I think, to your point, we're going to have to see more. At this ruling
we got to see what happens, right?
We're going to have to look through, and probably the next 2 to 5 years is really going to be telling for us to start to see how this affects the numbers and what the admissions process does different, if anything, to your point, because people still can talk about their race in their essays. They still can attend, diverse programming that provides additional support. Like, you can't excommunicate people out of their races or cultures. So, this ruling was saying, hey, we're not going to use this as an admission factor, but it doesn't rebuke the idea that your race is still at play in this society. So we'll see how it changes. So that's one thing. Another thing is, by having and supporting the affirmative action in schools and colleges, it prioritizes diversity benefits for students of all races. So diversity on college campuses enhances the educational experience of students of all backgrounds. Similarly, in the work environment, studies show that when you have a more diverse workforce, it is overall better business for organizations. So that it works both in the educational context as well in the workplace. And there's evidence gathered by the Century Foundation that suggests that racially integrated classrooms can reduce students' racial bias, improve satisfaction and intellectual self-confidence, and enhance leadership skills. That these benefits can translate to a better economic outcomes, among other payoffs, prepare students to work better in a diverse global economy, increase productivity, effectiveness, and creativeness of teams. So ultimately, having more diverse campuses is not just a benefit to the diversity coming to such campus, but it is a diversity benefit of all that attend the campus,
is important.
Which, for some people that may not be like standard knowledge. So I was like, that makes sense to me. Number 3, affirmative action in education promotes diversity in ways to focus not on in ways a focus on income alone cannot. So white income can and should be considered as not white, rather, while income can and should be while income can and should be considered as part of holistic evaluation of applicants, it should complement rather than supplement the consideration of race and ethnicity. Income can serve as a good indicator of a household's ability to cover regular expenses, but it doesn't tell the whole story about the economic well-being and access to higher education. Wealth makes it easier for families to relocate to better school districts, purchase test preparation books and classes, help pay for college tuition, but centuries of systemic racism and intergenerational transfers have provided white households with more wealth than households of color. And even after controlling for income, middle class income, white households typically have twice as much wealth as their Latinx counterparts and 3 times more wealth than their black counterparts. As a result, students of color, especially black students, are more likely than similarly situated white students to attend underfunded and high poverty K-12 schools. And even when students of color have wealthy parents or attend the same schools as white students, they experience the U.S. educational system differently. So
that's a problem there, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, blacks need to get the same education as their counterparts. It shouldn't be a difference. Like that's something to solve.
You're talking to what Dr. King wanted, but yet has not been put into practice.
Even in terms of there shouldn't be a thing where I have extra money, so now my kids can get more education compared to people that don't have money. That should just be kind of like provided by the government. They should cover that for students that want to learn more. They should have the opportunity
that would require our government leaders to acknowledge this reality and to actually make this a problem that is solvable. As of right now, it does not
prioritize education, right?
To prioritize, to democratize, to make education free for
children,
all, right? Like things like that will allow people to then live any district they want, right? And why are we attaching schooling based on districts? Maybe there shouldn't be district. That's why we have like redlining issues, right? Because now we're putting people in worse districts. They go to worse schools.
You could change the funding where only certain little areas get the biggest fundings, and those minority areas don't get a lot of funding.
Equally distributed. Wow, right? Then we don't have any issues. You can go to any school, and all the resources are going to be the same. Highly unlikely
at this point in time,
as of right now, this minute, but. 10 years from now, 20 years from now,
it's like talking about world hunger. Right?
Exactly.
It's not,
if
you're not solving it right now.
We decided that, poverty and hunger was something that we didn't want to live with. I wonder what that would mean for how we distribute our funds and what we prioritize our funds with. Right? Like, we're talking about deep-rooted societal issues. So,
we shouldn't, but people, I bring it up in episodes like this.
Yeah.
We should never say there isn't enough money to fund this, because that's definitely not true, right? We come up with money to send to other countries for help, so let's not lie and say the funding's not, like we just pull out billions of dollars, right?
It's fascinating.
I just want to put that forward.
And also, as you told
it's not a funding issue.
The word never, right, should not be applied to when it comes to such disparity with our community, because the same way folks thought we would never have a diversified White House, we did have it, right?
Yeah.
Like it is possible. So
anything's possible.
It can be possible. It seems very daunting currently, but it is possible, and we shouldn't lose hope, especially even with the court ruling. A fourth reason affirmative action helps colleges take steps toward greater equity in admission. So overall, affirmative action is a mechanism, again, that has allowed historically excluded groups to attend college. Students of color have long faced systemic barriers in our American educational system, which includes exclusion, segregation, underfunding, fewer resources, and lower familial wealth. As a result, students of color are more likely to fare worse on the indicators of success that colleges evaluate for admission, which we talked about, the SATs, standardized test taking, making it harder for people of color to access top tier public and private colleges. So race-conscious admissions practices such as affirmative action attempt to remedy these inequities by encouraging colleges to take a closer look at some of the non-traditional factors that could make a student successful, factors often overlooked in traditional admissions criteria. And wealthier, often white, students are more likely to have had a parent that attended college, meaning those students are likely to benefit from those practices such as legacy preference, which I think now is in question given what's going on with the affirmative action.
Yeah.
In addition, white students are likely to have greater amounts of wealth and attend K through 12 schools that provide multiple extracurricular activities, sports programs, and college prep resources. And those students are then considered more competitive for these top tier institutions. So affirmative actions is kind of like allowing schools to take a more holistic review and consider race as one of many factors in a way that doesn't, again, it's not. But
then doesn't it say it looks at, so it'll take one student, let's say they're a white student, they're just like a superstar in every measure. Then they'll look at a black student and it's like, I mean, well, they're doing okay, so we'll put them in because, we gotta. Not a quota necessarily, but we want to give them a chance.
Quotas are illegal.
Yeah, but can't that happen where a white person's displaced?
So this is the problem, right? Like in the reality of practice of affirmative action, schools, and it's not the affirmative action that's at issue, it's the fact that schools do have a class size limit. So in total,
that's the truth.
Right now, if that changes, now we're talking a different game. But in reality and in practice, currently there's a cap on how many students they can admit per class. And so if you employ saying, okay, affirmative action has gotten a person in, does that now take a space from another community? Potentially, but not because of affirmative action, but because there's a cap on how many students can attend that student class size.
So you would
for
blame
that.
You blame physical reality.
Well, reality of resources, because again, right, if you take away that cap, then you now need to look at what your class sizes are going to look at, how many professors you need, the types of resources,
logistically,
program, it really creates.
But I have a solution to that already.
Issue, though.
The easy answer.
The meta.
And you want to teleport them there, right?
Exactly.
So
Please
that's
stop.
what you like to do. And then the students don't have to worry about how they attend. But look, that's an infinite number of people that can be in it.
Well, maybe that is. So maybe that might be
limitless.
the difference. But then what if everyone just wants to go to Harvard then? And then we'd have all these other schools closed down. Then that could be the issue.
But what would happen is new schools would pop up, or schools that you never even thought of would pop up because they have a metaverse. They have a metaverse professor.
I mean, it's an interesting.
They have
proposition.
meta professors.
You know what?
There'd be a whole new term
like
for
Professor X.
No, Professor X is real, so it's not even her actual professor.
Professor X is real.
I know that statement. It doesn't sound right on the face of it. It's not a technically true statement, but I'm talking about in terms of if we were diving into the X-Men multiverse, then we can say Professor X is real. But I'm talking about what I'm talking now is about a meta professor that doesn't actually exist. Basically, an AI professor that teaches.
Oh wow, we're going to whole new levels now. So we're saying go virtually and not even be taught by a human being. Excellent, living the best life.
Because humans would make mistakes, but if the robot teaches you, that it's, at least you know you're getting the same quality every time.
And the fifth thing mentioned in the article is that affirmative action helps to promote social mobility. So again, taking students that come from low income backgrounds that have been historically denied or excluded will now have the opportunity to go to these higher rated and top tier schools, which then increases their chance to be more competitive for top tiered roles and jobs, and then top tier income, which then is social and economic change for that person and that family, which then again changes the trajectory of those people and those families involved. So it's at the end of the day, there's a lot of, I mean, granted, listen, I'm biased towards it, but those I thought were some really helpful things. And again, you'll find all the links in the episode notes so you can check it out yourself as well.
Because I have one rebuttal for that last point.
Yeah.
And the statistics, there's statistics about the HBCUs for blacks, according to bestcolleges.com. Mm-hmm. The top professions represented by HBCU graduates are 80% of black judges are HBCU graduates, 50% of black lawyers, 40% of black members of Congress, and 40% of black engineers graduated from HBCUs. So to say that you need affirmative action just to be competitive I don't know if that's true, because you can go to an HBCU and do really well career-wise. So I just offer that as a point.
That's a really cool point
a lot
to
of
offer.
people are doing that.
For me, what I've always enjoyed about the idea of affirmative action, though, is that it allows you to open up the opportunities to say no. Like if you are interested in going to historically HBCU, and that's what you're looking for in that college experience, because that is a certain specific type of collegiate experience you're going to get that is going to be different than a non-HBCU, then great. But if you don't want that HBCU experience and you want a more integrative college experience, you should have that door open. You should not have that door closed.
It should be open, but even with the door open, I'd have to find. I don't have the link to it, but but blacks who attend the PWIs compared to HBCU, they have more mental health issues during the PWI attendance versus if they're at the HBCU, they're able to flourish mentally. So, but it's also kind of like, even though
there's not one monolith for everything.
It's true.
Right?
That's true.
And what if you didn't go, for me, I didn't consider, I did apply to an HBCU and I was granted admission, but I didn't go because at the end of the day, I did not grow up in in a majority environment of people that looked like me. So I struggled with understanding whether or not I would have felt comfortable in a collegiate experience where everyone looked like me, right? Because if I didn't grow up in that, then I don't know if I know how to handle that, to be honest.
But
versus an integrative environment, that's what I've known my entire life.
But just because you know something, if
was it a good experience? It's like, did you grow up you loved the integrate experience? Because then it's like,
I
might as well try
I grew up in a very, I grew up and racism was a predominantly one of the biggest challenges of my childhood. But I would say by going to Penn State, because I was able to interact with different types of Black people that I hadn't interacted with in New York City, I would say my Black identity deepened and strengthened. Would it probably have been more strengthened or deepened on another level in a historically Black college or university? Probably.
Because then you're safe, because the thing with the HBCUs, and I didn't attend that, like,
you went to Penn State.
I went to Penn State with you, but when you go to HBCU, you can explore like your culture a little bit easier compared to when you're at the PWI, because you can't do that as much. You're learning more about kind of their culture right there. You're a minority at that college. You're not in the majority, so the experience is a lot different. I just point out that
it's just questionable.
You have an option.
It's not one or the other for everything. I just think that when I want, for say instance, our son, when he is at the stage of life where he's thinking about college, whether he wants to go or not, we will support that decision either way. But if he wants to go, I just want to ensure that he has all the doors open. And that's what I'm concerned about the Supreme Court ruling, that like, does this then close some doors for our community and people of color's community? Because then that's taking a step back in the nation. And I'm not sure. I think time will tell.
I think just by the points that you stated previously, I think it's just going to close doors for people that. So the thing, even with minorities, we're not all at the same level, right? There's minorities that do get extracurriculars and do get the college
have more
prep
resource and support.
And get all that. And there's ones that don't, and it's that ones that don't.
Like black,
those are the ones who can suffer
Latin
from this.
Suffer the most.
But the ones that aren't, like the ones that are at the lower end of the poverty scale, I'd say they can suffer more than general minorities. Because remember, we have people like the Obamas, right?
Yes.
I mean, their children aren't going to suffer.
Well, they're going to still.
Affirmative action.
Yes, but I mean, I mentioned in the article though, they still will not get the same. Like again, just being a Black and brown person in the country means it's like. Here's a notch,
that's a different issue. I think
you're still not going to get the same resources.
Yeah, that's
fully.
a little more.
You're not going to get the same respect.
That's a little more
fully.
specific than affirmative action, though.
Yeah.
But
it goes broader beyond it.
Yeah. So, what do you think the future looks like without affirmative action? What will happen?
This is a great question. It's a scary question, but I was happy to find on NBC News some thoughts that I think could hopefully help people think this through a little bit more. So on the article, they shared the following. There are higher education experts that suggest that the expansion of recruitment efforts to include different kinds of high schools, creating pipeline programs to recruit students from community colleges, minimizing the reliance on standardized test scores are some of the ways that elite schools affected by this decision can help mitigate some of its effect. The article goes on to say that leaders have emphasized to reporters that while the ruling focuses specifically on barring race as a factor in admissions, it doesn't limit a university's ability to implement outreach, engagement, and retention programs aimed at enrolling diverse student bodies, which means just because race is not an admission factor anymore doesn't mean that you can't have race supported endeavors or initiatives, and I thought that's actually true, like true facts.
Before you continue though, we should just not make that a footnote. That standardized test score, that is actually a big issue for minorities.
We talked about that in an episode.
Yeah, we talked about it.
And schools are already doing that, absolutely.
Yeah, because just relying on that, like even
SATs in and of itself is not a determining factor of you'll be successful.
It doesn't determine much, because in real life you don't take a standardized test, right? It's not I'm doing my job. Let me do
this. Take a test at the end. Yeah.
Let me do multiple choice or write an essay and see if I win. No, that's not how it works.
Is the deliverable? No, the deliverable is not a test at the end.
Oh no, okay.
Absolutely not. Yeah. Okay, and then also the article goes on to say that the federal government and the Department of Education will have an important role in providing guidance to higher education institutions around how parts of this decision by the Supreme Court should be interpreted, and that Sally Chen, the Education Equity Program Manager at Chinese for Affirmative Action, said that she hopes that this moment serves as a gateway to challenge the idea that college is a zero-sum game, or the idea that if someone gets a spot, someone else loses a spot, which is what we kind of spoke to as well. That ultimately we need to look at, like, is some of the things that were driving the challenge and the issue with affirmative action more related to, like, school logistics. And to your point, maybe as the metaverse continues to be a more prominent part of our society, how our education's tapping into things like that to make sure that we don't have class limits, or that we can broaden the totality of who can be considered for attendance, and, you know, create more opportunity. Like, we have to look at this as how can we see and create the silver lining that maybe is not already apparent to people.
Yeah, that's some good points on where it's probably going. I think that another thing to mention, and this is just inevitable, is that the HBCU's black enrollment will definitely increase. And I think the PWIs, I don't know if you mentioned it, but it's shown it has happened at other places that have, because there's been schools that have taken down affirmative action.
Oh yeah,
and their black enrollment has decreased as a result of it.
That makes sense.
So
it's going to be correlated.
One's going to go up, one's going to go down, right?
Yeah.
So I think no matter what, that's going to happen. But you know, there's a whole bunch of other. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of rolling effects that we can't, just as we spoke to, we can't even.
Well, we can't even anticipate.
Right?
I mean, but what I would encourage is that historically black colleges and universities do speak to the idea that, like, I think that there's going to be some of their student body are used to growing up in environments where they see and look like people see and look themselves and feel comfortable with that. But there are people like you and I who grew up in mixed communities, and that could be something that you want to speak to and provide solace, because I even knew someone who went from where the type of environment that I was from, went to an HBCU and really struggled, really struggled with black identity, really struggled with acceptance, because she wasn't of that community. She wasn't from the South. She wasn't, right? Like, and then, that can put a bad taste in people's mouth of like, hey, I'm trying to, dive in and double down on my race in my community, and I'm not even being accepted here. So, and people may or may not want to talk about that, but that's a reality.
It could be if you don't adapt to the culture, because Southern culture is going to be a little bit different.
If the culture isn't as accepting, because black Southern culture is very different than Northern black culture.
But I wouldn't want to say it's less accepting than Northern culture.
I would not say it's less accepting at all. No. I would not insinuate that at all. But what I would say is there's a difference. And so when you have different cultural norms, what has to happen? Both sides have to learn to make space for each other.
And then I didn't think about, but this is another point that I would bring up. I mean, I was talking about meta colleges popping up. But what if just not even HBCU, but what if more black colleges pop up? I don't even know what you'd call it. Like, it's not an HBCU.
Oh, yeah, gotcha.
Blacks
just new
pool
school
money
formations
to get,
or
that's
something.
formed through
New
black
private
funding
schools are formed.
or minority funding, whoever. Like, what if that could be an occurrence too? Now, people may say, let's put our money together and start a real school. I'm not going to throw shade at the guy that started a fake school, but somebody did.
Khalil, you're just
no, but it's true. But like, start an actual university, but people know what I'm talking about.
Into something a little bit different.
I'm not going to mention it, but we should do something in that vein and start our own universities.
Yes,
right?
That is an option for new educational opportunities.
But it has to be real curriculum
that are accredited.
Real curriculum
that allow for thriving environments for students
that don't only serve sushi.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, just putting it out there so people know it. Here we go, yo. So what's the scenario? It's scenario time. Scenario 1. Shateza struggled all throughout high school. She attended within her district, but feels they never catered to her learning style. She feels she should find a job as soon as possible so she can save up and move to LA. Her counselor tells her she should have a good shot at attending a 4-year college for performing arts. Do you think affirmative action would help Shateza be accepted to college even though her grades are low?
That's such a broad question and such a leading question. So now, no, since it was shut down.
Most of the questions are like that. That's funny. This is one of the first times that you brought that up, but most of the questions are leading.
Oh, of course
that's intentional.
Yeah. I know they are. Yes.
That's funny you brought it up. Though.
But to me, it was so glaring to it was just wild today. So it's just, it was just really out of pocket for today. For me, at least.
But either way, you said, okay, if it's shot down, it's not. But if it was not shot down, would it still help?
So if affirmative action was still legally enforceable, would it help her in this scenario? So I would say, I mean, I've done admissions work from a law school perspective. I haven't done it at the collegiate level. A little bit. I mean, not officially, but I've done it from, a little bit of that type of work. And I would say, ultimately, admissions officers are typically trying to be more holistic, I think, in how they assess students. And so based on this information, it seems to me, even if you just have low grades and it's not clear like what else she did in school or what are other things that she could demonstrate that shows what type of student and what type of success she would have on campus, then no, I don't think affirmative action would help her. And also, we don't know what school she would be applying to. For all you know, she could only apply to historically black colleges, and then there's no
trick question,
application.
That's a good one.
So from this basis, as per usual, more information would be needed to address the question. But on the surface, my answer is no.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, my answer is yes. I think affirmative action would help her, because I think that that's part of what affirmative action did, is that it said, all right, your school, your even though your GPA might be low, maybe you still have a shot at doing this college thing. So we're going to let you in, and
You're so flippant about
we're
and
gonna
biased
deny
in how you talk about it, too. It is not just like show your race card and you enter the club, Khalil. Like,
yeah, but I feel like it's a little boost, though. It's kind of like saying, I didn't do this and this,
oh my gosh,
but
like
I got
Republican. Like, it is
I'm
not how that's used.
I'm sitting in the middle.
It is not used like that.
That's
but
how
you're
it's
so
used?
flippant and you're so biased.
But it seems like I mean, how else would you use it? It seems
it is
like
not
that's
like that. It's kind of like, hey, you have 12 cards, and one of your cards is saying, hey, this person happens to be a black person. But it is, hey, look at this person. They had a 3.8 or a 3.4 out of a 4.0.
You know what
and they did this, and they led this in their church, and they did, like, it's a consideration.
watch this.
It is not the entrance.
This is what it'll do, because just imagine this school. We can make it small numbers, like there's 10 people that let's say there's only 10 people that apply to this school, and 9 of them, or all right, 10 of them, or 10 people can only be accepted in this school.
Yeah.
So 10 people that apply are white, 1 black person's applied. That black person's getting in no matter what.
But see what you're talking about is like it's bordering on the idea of like a quota of like, oh, we got to have one person.
I know,
and the quotas
it's
are
not
illegal.
It's not a quota necessarily, but they say, all right. I mean,
so what I'm saying,
we have no diversity, right? So let's take a shot at this person.
But they're not going to take a shot on someone just because you happen to be walking and talking in black. What they're going to do is they're going to take a shot on someone who is competitive within their arena, and their arena may be a little bit less competitive based on the other applicant pools. But we're not just saying.
But we just say all that is a hope, though. That we hope they do. We hope they were doing it that way. But we don't know that for sure, though, right?
I mean, to the best of what you can do based on what you put on paper, right? And what you do in your interviews.
So I think that's the biggest affirmative action. It's like a slippery slope, because it's like you have no proof that that's what was happening, because it wasn't. It's like the admissions process isn't so transparent.
Proof that black and brown people's lives are harder in this country,
we know all
that they need additional support.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
In question.
But all I want to say is that, I mean, affirmative action, we don't know if, I mean, it's using discrimination to try to fix the discrimination that's been.
Discrimination. What it's saying is we're acknowledging discrimination, and we created a tool to help counter future generational disparity. But guess what? It's out of the pocket. It's done. So you never have to worry tomorrow.
Yeah,
it's done.
So now people, because that's...
So now they can just discriminate nilly-willy and have fun.
No, the problem is I mean, if you're trying to create a place where discrimination is illegal, you can't have discriminatory practices on the book, which I know America has a lot of that.
Though. It's not. It's equalization.
It definitely is.
I don't understand how you don't understand the fact that if there are multi-generations that have benefited from generational wealth and resources, how can you counter that with
quotas?
But quotas are not allowed, and quotas are more discriminatory, because it is saying,
I don't think so.
We are going to put in place, no matter what, we're going to find a black and brown body to fill a seat.
Yeah, we're going to make this a diverse college no matter what.
What we're saying is, let's look at the competitiveness of different communities, even if it's slightly different than what our normal or quote unquote average standard is. And we're going to give those people opportunities communities because they would normally not be given an opportunity to attend here. That is what the affirmative action did.
I'm for fixing the real problem at hand. Like we're talking about the K through 12.
Actually fixing racism,
education.
Which is like
not racism.
For some people,
No, I'm talking about fixing the playing field of just education, because the problem, like we were talking about, that the wealthy kids get more resources. That's a problem.
Good luck trying to convince people that all people deserve equality to resources and funding. Good luck with that.
Yeah,
right.
That's the issue.
What you're saying is monumentally challenging beyond belief. That's far worse of an issue.
But that's what the country. That's what the country would want to be.
Oh, of course
about,
they would. But then that would be acknowledging that people need the same. That people need to be prioritized and equalized in our society, and we are not there.
Well, because
people are not there at saying that all people deserve access to equal things. Okay.
But, people would lie, right? I think a problem is people think people do have equal access to all things.
Exactly. That's not even it's not even a reality for people across this nation. That
people
all
don't
people
realize
have the same
that,
things. People would say, I came to this country with nothing you did too.
Yeah, see?
Nope. It's a different narrative. And people love to do the struggle game, right? Like, I struggled in this, my family struggled in this, and they want to compare against slavery. They want to, instead of getting to the root of the issue, which is, there is lack of access to resources across communities. That is a reality. If until we can get people to acknowledge that, you can't even tackle getting people to equalize the funding scheme for schools.
Yeah, it's an uphill battle, but we pulled the Band-Aid off of.
Yeah, we started with this, so we're gonna have to keep
off that open wound. So
we're gonna have to have some hard conversations, I guess, and leaders are really gonna have to battle, and people are gonna have to figure out, how do you get people to acknowledge the disparity in this country?
I think the tech is going to do it. Tech is the way forward.
I think it's a way to move
forward.
It's going to be tech. As long as you can get tech access across communities.
It's coming.
Then sure.
We have broadband being built for lower access communities.
So we've got to give people equal opportunity to succeed and to thrive in this country. It is not acceptable to say, wealth is the name of the game. You either have it or you don't. That's not acceptable.
See, people don't say that, even though it's a freaking lie. It's anybody can attain wealth. All you need to do is work hard.
That's not. Nope.
Pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Yeah, exactly.
But we're not giving you boots.
The bootstraps were built on top of the backs of certain communities, right? So let's not forget historicalness of this country.
Yeah, that's a multifaceted issue. Scenario 2. Adeboyega is an all-around superstar at his school. He plays nearly every sport for each season, while still making time to attend mathematics competitions, and even tutors his peers. He recently was accepted into all of the colleges he applied to, with a full ride. A buddy of his told him the only reason he got in was due to affirmative action. Do you think affirmative action diminishes Adeboyega's personal achievements?
So that person who spoke to him that way is not his friend. I just want to clarify that.
It's a buddy, though.
Yeah, that's not a buddy. That's a frenemy, I think, what the youngsters
just because they made one mistake?
Yep. Because that is so degrading to say to someone.
It is a messed up thing,
It is so offensive, considering what these fictional facts are. So
I don't like that you point out that they're fictional, because this could nail somebody down to a T.
Because I don't want them looking for articles in relation to this and be like, where are they citing this? Where is this person? Is he in Minnesota? I don't want people to.
But you say it like
so
that.
I just stated
it should be kind of like
the conversation.
It should be like any resemblance to historical or actual people is purely coincidental. That's what really it should be. It shouldn't be what you said, that it's just nonfiction.
An HBO episode or something.
Yeah, because all I'm basically saying is this could be a person in real life. This could be. Not that it is.
All right. So based on these facts as presented here, it would be so degrading and so disgusting to say to someone who is not only succeeding in their academic journey, but is also taking the time to demonstrate their competency and their skill and their passions regarding mathematics, to be able to be a tutor. You know what it takes to tutor other people? You have to know your stuff to really be able to tutor and educate others. And to have someone turn around in your face and say it's because of the color of your skin that allowed you to have success in the next part of your journey, disgusting, deplorable. Sounds like that person is jealous AF. And that is not the reason why he seemingly got into the schools. What it sounds sounds like to me from these facts is that he is a superstar as stated in the facts, and that is why he has been admitted to the schools of his choice. As someone who also did very well in my schools, I did not have the highest SAT, but I killed it in every other aspect of my educational journey, thus feel very proud about my Penn State admission, and admission to all schools I apply to. But, I would be deplored at someone who would say, oh, well, you happen to be black, so you got in. That's disgusting.
So this question is interesting because, yes, I do agree with you. He didn't get in because he was black. That's not the reason. Mm-hmm. But did affirmative action on its face diminish his personal achievements? Because
through people's perception, yes.
Because now it gives
not
people
in reality.
In reality, it might, but it gives people the option to say,
yes.
Guess what? The only reason you're doing this affirmative action.
That's because of how people perceive.
I know.
It's like how you like to use it. Oh, you're black. You got it everywhere.
It's not me using
so
it.
deplorable.
I'm just thinking. I'm playing the devil's advocate,
yes,
and I know
speaking
that's
to the
what the
Republican
people
narrative. Yes.
I think that's what everyone's saying. Like they don't want to say it out loud. I'm saying the quiet part.
Some people do say it out loud. Yeah,
they do. Yeah, pretty much. But so to me, the answer to this question is, I think it does diminish it because it allows people to even say that, hey, you only got in here because of that. So now with that gone, people can't even say it anymore. They can, but they're just idiots, right? They can say the moon is on the sun. They don't have a brain. But now with affirmative action gone, they can't say that, oh, you only got in because you're black. They can't say that.
Yeah,
now.
but it just begs the question if he's still going to get in, if he would still get into all his schools. See, that's where we have to remain to be seen.
And that's important. He better get into all his schools
because otherwise then it would be proving that point.
Yeah, see.
But so it remains to be seen. Time will tell, won't it?
Yeah, that's a time will tell thing. But at least I think going
on
forward,
the face, in theory,
somebody like this, that buddy's never going to say that. They're just going to be like, man, he really is a
jealous,
star.
And that is not your friend. Someone who says that to you.
Maybe he wouldn't come out he can't come out and say that. He can only think bad thoughts in his head now.
Well, he can do that to himself. He should find better friends.
But he has, this is just one of his buddies. That's not it. That's not it. I didn't say that as a best friend or anything.
That's it.
Yeah. Scenario 3. G is a Chinese American who applied to a competitive college. He has been on the dean's list every year, is captain of the lacrosse team, and an editor for his high school newspaper. Unfortunately, his application was denied. Do you think affirmative action prevented him from being accepted into his college of choice?
Is this a college that is an Ivy League school, or just a state school, or what type of school?
It's an Ivy League.
So again, based on these facts, no, on its face, I would not say affirmative action prevented him from his college of choice. I would say competitiveness of the school environments he was applying to prevented his, because again, unfortunately in life, if it's not already clear to y'all, as good as you are, there's somebody better. And there's also somebody worse than you. And the reality is, if you are trying to get into an Ivy League school, there is a cap size on how many people they admit. And you can be as competitive as you think you are. It's the creme de la creme, like top of the top of the top, that get at admittance into these schools. And unfortunately, these sound like tremendous accomplishments. However, it's not clear to me is this the most competitive standing point he could be in? Because I don't see reference to SAT scores. Also don't know what other additional extracurricular activities he did. That in of itself to me is not enough. If you're going to a Harvard, a Yale, a Princeton, you need a little bit more, darling.
Oh, wow.
But yes, absolutely. For the people that I know went to those schools, they did 25 things and also had a 3.9 or higher, and had a 1,500 and higher on that. Like, they were supreme human beings. Now, so this in and of itself, it's cute, but it's cute. Like, you're doing stuff, you're cute, but are you gangster? I don't think you're a gangster.
Oh, really? Wow.
Not for some collegiate experiences. No.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Harvard, Yale. You're talking the best of the best, right? You're talking people who are superhuman. That's not enough based on these facts. It's cute. That's cute.
Okay. All right. Now the interesting thing is, we didn't mention it all throughout the episode, but this is actually the reason why this affirmative action had been struck down. An Asian American actually brought the case up that they weren't able to enter into their college of choice because of affirmative action.
Yeah, that is a perception for some people, of course.
Perception or not, that brought down this is why the Supreme Court had their ruling on it was just because of the suit brought up by that. So
good for them,
what they argue is now that with affirmative action gone, that now the Asian American rates of attendance at these colleges is going to rise.
You know, it'll be funny if it doesn't.
So yeah, like I've seen.
Be funny if
I've seen and
I can see that.
We've seen numbers where it shows that when they take away affirmative action, it's not more.
I think
Asians
that
don't
some
take the
people
seats.
think that
They
is
think
again.
that
There's
does,
a
but it
perception that the loss of is for someone to make space for some is the diminishing of others.
I know it didn't work like that before, but we'll see.
A scarcity mindset issue, right? There's enough pie for everyone, and as you mentioned, at the end of the day, students need to be really thinking about what are the best schools for you to get the job of your choice, not the college of your choice. People focus on the college of their choice. What is the job of your choice? You know how many people go to school and don't have a clue what they want to be, or how many times they have to change over their majors, self-included? Why are you going to a college without mapping out what you want to do in this world? Because that college is the bridge to that destiny and that future. If you lack clarity in that, maybe that needs to be more of the focal point than the college of your choice.
And
mic drop. Booyah.
And then what if G actually had a secret project that was...
Copy AI.
was that he actually invented ChatGPT. So.
Facts.
He
Does
still
that change
didn't
my
get
vision?
it.
Now that's sad. But I would say then yes, then I would be more inclined to say that. Interesting. It depends because colleges are actually really struggling with this whole, copy AI, chat GPT situation because so many students are like, cool, I never write a paper ever again. That's awesome.
Well, yeah, they could write all your admissions letters now, right?
So they're really struggling with that. And so I don't know if schools would look too kindly at someone who created the platform. I think they might be a little bit mad. Like,
okay.
People always love to blame the founders of change, but in theory, it sounds like a billionaire coming up. So good for you.
So maybe he doesn't even need college.
Exactly.
Right?
Maybe you should just go and just get your little online certificate, honey. And the richest people in this world.
And then guess what he can do later?
Do not have college degrees. Booyah.
And he can just do a hefty donation and he'll get
his honorable degree.
He can get an honorary doctorate.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. This life is hilarious because at the end of the day, people are so up in arms,
he can just pay for it later.
Pissed off. And at the end of the day, you can buy your degree. So I don't know what we're quarreling about. What's the quarrel? Where's the lie? There is none. Okay, then.
It's pretty cool.
Exactly.
But, yeah, I mean, in this case, I don't think affirmative action actually prevented him from being accepted.
Like I said, he's cute, but it's not enough.
To me, you're saying
it's cute. Like
you're saying all that stuff. But I mean, even if he had more things that would have helped him get in, and he didn't get in, it's a competitive college, right? There might have been just too many applications.
Too many people that had similar. Because again, what if there were 500 people that had the exact same background?
Yeah, that's the issue.
That is a possibility. It's a possibility.
And I think the biggest thing that people don't know is there's not so much transparency in this admission process. It's not like they show you all the numbers. All right, these are all the groups of people that apply to this. Yep. We don't all see all those numbers, and this was all their qualifications.
Yep,
like,
we don't see that.
We don't see like a database of that.
That's an interesting perspective. And just now, what if that was required for college admission? That you could see your applicants,
and just everybody
would totally change people's perspective.
Serialized.
Like,
because then you could be like,
now I see why I didn't get
that's why,
because there were literally 5,000 people exactly like me.
Yeah,
I got you.
Because I think that's the biggest problem is people are just making assumptions here.
Oh yeah, we're just saying, we see someone else, and they're like, oh, how dare you?
Because what they'll do, because I think some schools will release like, we had this many applicants.
Oh yeah, but you
that
don't
doesn't
know
tell
the profiles.
you anything about them though.
You don't know like the Facebook profile. Like, if they really put some transparency behind this, then we could see. And
I think that's the really issue.
Well, people would try to harm people though. That's why they can't.
When they harm people.
I mean, if you found out, they would have to hide the names, or because people would try to attack.
Even you'd have to know how to categorize stuff where it's so general that they can't pinpoint who you are.
Yeah, because if they could identify it, would be problematic. Yeah.
So that would be the problem. You have to learn how to categorize. It'd be a whole thing. You'd have to develop the system to do that.
But someone listening to this might.
Oh no! Oh no! Okay.
Missed opportunity.
Hey, give us credit too.
Hey, shout out, WokeNFree.
Guess who inspired you? And guess who was helping you develop the algorithm?
Hey, this fictional character. Nice.
No, Natasha was helping develop the algorithm.
Exactly.
She's telling you exactly how
Where's
it should work.
the lie in that? We are at that time again. It's coming to the end of our 305th episode of Woke and Free. Quite the episode, asking the question and really discussing, is affirmative action needed for equality in school? Now, Khalil, what do folks need to do now?
Come back next week for the new WokeNFree Wednesday episode. Make sure you follow us on social media to follow on the conversation, and make sure you tune in next week for WokeNFree Wednesday to join the conversation at WokeNFree.com.
If you are interested in sharing topic ideas, we would welcome them on our Contact Us page at WokeNFree.com. That's WokenFree.com. And again, we would love for you to follow us and share your thoughts with all of our online conversations or social conversations. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Pinterest, and LinkedIn at WokeNFree. And of course, all sponsorship and collaboration queries should be directed to our Contact Us page at WokenFree.com.
If you didn't already subscribe, please do share the episode and make sure you come back to join the conversation every Wednesday for WokeNFree Wednesdays. Remember, WokeNFree is more than a podcast. It is a way of life. Until next time.